development for which I think we can all congratulate that institution over the past 10 years particularly. What his reflections are on this topic. We have asked Professor Jacques Thomassen, who is leading in the Netherlands Institute of Government, which is a PhD school, a research school as we call it in the Netherlands, for all Dutch, I think, yeah, I still can say all Dutch public administration programs in which they collaborate and work together in training and forming their PhD program, except next to the research program that they're carrying out jointly, and it's accredited by the National Academy of Sciences. And then thirdly, we've asked Lszl Vass with the Budapest University with a lot of experiences in an overview in some of the accession countries, but even beyond that in Central and Eastern Europe, with what's going on in the area of PhD education. And I've asked them to prepare a short statement, their own reflections, talking a little bit from their experience, but at least given this introduction, one of the first questions I think that also need to be answered. Do you have an answer to this question? Why is PhD training and the whole debate on it so absolutely missing in this whole debate on tuning and in general, but in public administration in particular? Do you have an idea why it is? And secondly, what do you think of it? Is it good? Is it logical? Doesn't really matter because it's an untouchable subject area that you don't want to have legislated or tuned anyway. It will manifest itself. There's different. It's part of a different world with its own quality security procedures that do not need to be regulated. Or is it a matter of neglect? Is it a mistake? Is it perhaps a little bit too much inward looking? Well, with these general questions, I would like to ask them to have a few reflections and then see what we can get out of the floor, people sitting here to get some kind of a debate, and I'll try to stir it up a little bit more if necessary. Why don't we follow the way you're listed in the program? May I ask Professor Ziller to first take an attempt at these questions and perhaps raise some others.
I have no answer to the question why. This being said, there is some tuning of PhD programs in Europe, but not of public administration PhD. That's what I'm witnessing in Florence. The institute in France is not anti-factor at all. Only for 4 years, since 4 years, so I cannot be proud of what my predecessors have done. We are doing tuning every day, tuning and input, because basically the students we have in Florence are only PhD students coming from all over Europe, both member states, associate countries, and even beyond. We have Russian students. So we are doing tuning at the input stage, which is very difficult as a matter of fact, because although we have a quite clear-cut system of entrance, when we have to compare students from different countries, we have typically British students who come with usually a bachelor's degree or a master's at the age of 22, who are in the same program as a Swedish student who would usually be in his or her 30s, and a Portuguese who is in his or her 40s. So we have the difficulty of tuning because the 2 layers of the bachelor and master, whatever they are in different countries, are so different. We have difficulties, but we have a gain experience. And when I'm saying difficulties, we still do it since 35 years, so it's the truth of putting it can be done. But we have some difficulties at the output side, which also are being overcome more and more. Namely, we have students who go out with a doctorate of the European Institute, which is officially recognized by governments of member states whenever the government has something to say. The last one here is Belgium, which is a problem of its own. But the governments don't matter. What matters, we know very much, is the universities. And what we see is that although there is legal recognition, so I think the legal framework is not the most important one. What is important is the peer recognition, and we see that there is peer recognition in those countries where there is strong interaction between professors, students, and our own professors. It might be from the same nationality or not, but that's certainly a question of tuning where you need a lot of, I would say, corporatism building at European level. That instead of having this strong corporatism we all know, which is very strong at university level and usually quite strong at national or sub-national level, this has to grow more at the European level if you want any kind of tuning. And we experienced also the tuning. I was fascinated when you said it's so difficult to look at the, I think it was line 4, learning, assessment, teaching. We are something like 45 professors coming from those all European countries. It is then difficult to agree on what is the best learning, teaching, assessment, and not to fall in the trap of telling lies about we do it better, whereas what we criticize at home should also criticize where we are wrong. So it's maybe an answer, a small answer. Why isn't it there? Because probably there's a consciousness that it's very difficult. This being said, it can be done. We don't do it in public administration, but I'll only spend a sentence about it. That's simply because the European Institute in France is reflecting the traditional way in which faculties are organized in most countries. We have a department of law, we have a department of social and political science, and this is already a big integration, having sociologists and political scientists together, and it's not very easy for them. We have economists, but our economists, like the biggest part of Europe, are only doing econometrics, game theory, could be very useful, but they are not accustomed to discuss with us, at least not at the level of teaching students. And we have historians. So where is public administration? I'm interested in public administration in the law department. I have a colleague in history who's interested in this. And I had a colleague in the SPS in social and political science who was interested, but he's not president of the institute and has no time to do it. These are a few reflections on it.
Okay. The agenda proved very difficult. That's why we avoid the subject. That's basically what you're saying. And the internal multidisciplinary nature of the field being endangered, or making a PhD in public administration perhaps in the future an endangered species. I mean, let's see where we can take that a little bit further.
It's something we have PhDs which don't have the label, but which have been studied.
Precisely. But I mean, once you start formalizing it, it might fall he has to deal with. He had to deal with this problem, but in a national, not necessarily in an international sense.
More and more in international context.
Also, yes, correct.
As well. And it is dilemmas that we are confronting now. But the question I would like to start with is: do we really believe in something like the development of a European space of public administration, PhD training programs? If we do believe in that, is it then not time to try to harmonize the programs across Europe?
You're going to give your answers now.
Yes, I will. Well, perhaps we might want to do that, but I'm also quite convinced that this is the most perfect scenario to ensure that nothing will done, at least not in the short run. The most important problem I think in developing of any European-wide similarity in PhD programs is the fact that there's such a diversity in the way PhD programs are organized, and also what the content is concerned, not just in public administration, but in PhD training in general. To the best of my knowledge, the PhD programs that we have in Europe are somewhere between two extremes. On the one extreme is I think the continental model, you might say the somewhat isolated writer model, where a PhD student would reside somewhere on the attic at home, and when he has a view of finish the dissertation submitted to a professor, individual professor, and on the other hand, on the other extreme, there is the so-called Anglo-Saxon model, where at least a certain amount of coursework is part of the requirement in order to finish the PhD program. On that side, on the extreme, are most of British and Irish universities, I think, and some of the Scandinavian universities, and there are countries somewhere in between, like the Netherlands, Denmark, and Finland, I believe. Well, if you would want to harmonize such a diversity of programs, I think that's a total hopeless task, at least for the short run. And therefore, I would prefer to start on the other side, to work bottom up, and see what we can do in terms of cooperation, just by admitting students from abroad to your own program. And I'm not talking about the input in your own program in terms of, in our system at least, of admitting students to your own programs who then go through your complete program, because that to a certain extent is still a national program. Now, if you at least have the possibility to test people before you admit them, it's in your own hands to admit only the people who meet your requirements. So in that sense, most PhD programs in Europe are developing into an international European program. The Netherlands Institute of Government Studies is a joint program of all the Dutch universities. Now is hiring close to 50% of its students from abroad, from the students of itself. That is, to a certain extent, the problem, but that's the real problem, I think. If we're talking about internationalization, and internationalization now is the purpose of all of us, I think at least the purpose of the Netherlands Institute of Government, that is at the level of more or less structural cooperation with other institutions, with other programs, other PhD programs abroad. That is the real problem, because if you really want to institutionalize that, there needs to be a certain compatibility between the programs that you want to involve in such kind of cooperation. And as in our case, the Netherlands Institute of Government is a joint program of basically all Dutch universities, at least of all Dutch universities where they do have a program of public administration and or political science. We have both public administration and political science in our school now. What we are trying to set up is a kind of cooperation with countries where more or less the same development can be observed. And that's in particular in Denmark and to a certain extent, and to a less extent also in the other Nordic countries, I think. So we are now setting up a structural kind of cooperation with the Danish network in political science and public administration. But we haven't even discussed any formal arrangements of how we might do that. What I said, the only way to get it organized, I think, is to do it bottom up. We have a regular curriculum, mandatory coursework for our own students, and at the same time we have a research program. Because the characteristic of research schools is that they have not only a curriculum for PhDs, but it's always connected to a research program. And the major goal of our research school is to get PhD students involved in the research program in cooperation with senior scholars. That's the basic idea of the Dutch research school. Denmark is developing more or less the same idea, and what we are doing now is admit Danish students to what we call research colloquia. These are very intense seminars where both PhD students and senior scholars participate in very intense lab. PhD students can present papers, can present drafts of their dissertations, which are then commented by senior colleagues, etc. We are now admitting Danish students to that program. It's a great success. Both sides are very satisfied about the development, I think, and there is hardly a hurdle to enter this kind of activities, and for that reason we have been admitting students from other countries as well. Now we have a number of Flemish students who are now participating in our program. We have been trying to set up the same kind of arrangement with the Flemish community, whatever region that's developing a little bit slower than with the Danes. But I at least strongly believe in developing this kind of cooperation by piecemeal engineering. Started on the side. We don't even talk about formal arrangement, about formal institutions. Do it step by step. That's mostly in line, adding up a number of small steps, and yet might end up in a giant step for the advancement of a more or less joint idea of how PhD programs in public administration should look like across Europe. One observation on what the thematic network might do in this respect. The strange thing, unless I haven't seen something that you might have seen, was you said something about tuning that would exist. To the best of my knowledge, it's extremely difficult even to get the basic information of the kind of PhD programs that exist in other countries, let alone that you might have a systematic overview of all programs and the way these training programs are organized across Europe. What I think that we need is a report on the way these programs across Europe are organized, and I think the thematic network is in an excellent position to develop such an inventory. If I'm not mistaken, that's the very reason why the European Commission has been supporting this kind of thematic network, to start with this kind of inventory, because information is the basis that we need for all further developments. Another thing that might be very helpful here, and that might be on the website of the thematic network, but there would be a place where you could advertise vacancies for PhD positions, where PhD students themselves might just make institutions aware of their systems, and also there would be a link to the more or less structured PhD programs in Europe.
Okay, thank you. Thank you also very, very concrete and specific proposals here. Actually, we have a working group on it tomorrow, which is well prepared. I think with a paper that could provide a framework for doing that kind of inventory. It's not only, by the way, the inventory which is being done by these thematic networks, but at least it begins. So that's an important step to do that kind of thing in order to explore further action. I think this is also part of that debate. But it's interesting that you seem to reject, if I would like to polarize, almost a approach by which the European Institute has been run. Started as an institution with a clear mission of an integrated institution for all of Europe, and you're basically saying that is not a strategy which will work, where I think that it has proven to work. And then, but not too long, just as a...
Very short. The European Institute is perfect institute, but what I said is input in a particular institute, in this case the European Institute, then I think all the problems that you have with the different levels of incoming students, that's not a basic problem, because all these students are then falling within the European Institute the same program. What I said is what is difficult, that's not getting foreign students to your own program is not difficult. What is difficult is cooperating on a partial basis across different institutions with total different organizational contents of their PhD program.
Okay, thank you. There are some points I think are still there for discussion, not practical, but surely are still philosophical ones. But let's go for a moment for reflection to our third speaker to reflect and ask Lszl Vass to say something about his impression about, is there a difference here between the usual difference between East-West, and is there a variation going on? What are developments as you perceive them in the accession countries or in
Well, my first reaction is that I don't see too big differences today between the Central East European countries and West European countries or European Union member countries. From that point of view, the universities have to deal with the long process and restructuring the whole teaching process, different levels, content and so on. In origin, obviously, the last 12 years have been very, very difficult and complicated because we were facing minimum 2 or 3 revolutionary tasks together. So just finishing the institutional system change, immediately we jumped into another very hard process of the administrative reforms, and some countries starting to deal with the urbanization to build administrative capacities. And I think all universities and higher education organizations play a very, very important role to train civil servants to deal with practical issues as well, not only with academic questions. So it was really a very torturing period. And so it is also true that PhD is a kind of a crown of the education process, higher education process. So if you have a PhD in discipline, so it means that this is a well-accepted, natural, accepted discipline, high prestige discipline. So we just heard that there is a big debate, and also not just we heard, but we are teaching it. So the public administration is such thing like the elephant and the Indian tail. So if you look at it from different angles, you see very different things, and it's a regular question that is it an integrated thing or not? Is it a practice or a discipline? So if we have such basic questions, maybe it is not too easy to PhD programming of the administration, because the PhD programs are very, very different. I can confirm that in all countries the existing PhD programs are very, very close to the West European PhD programs. One is closer to the political science, other is closer to the economics or management sciences. The third might be a more clear public administration thing if it exists at all. What is very, very important, and I think network can play a very important role, or cooperation can play a very important role, to serve as a permanent forum for information exchange and support for the national efforts to build better quality, higher quality PhD programs. And I don't know how can we do it, but if we can set some norms, we should be very cautious with it. But if we can set some quality norms, looking this on the street level, closely equal burden for the students who are studying in PhD courses, I think it would be very, very helpful. And in this stage, just let's have an example. EPAN has a very nice activity. The doctoral student network is a very well working network, and Eva released a questionnaire for us. So this questionnaire is one of such support if we feel it, and we will have a much better picture about our programs. So what I would suggest now, on very, very practical way, yes, everyone should develop supporting activities, and I don't think that we have to unify the PhD programs, not at all. We have to obviously respect the autonomy of the universities and the autonomy of the higher education. But looking at the Bologna process, all of us need help and information about what the other institutes do, and if we could do something together for setting some quality norms, I think it would be more than we do.
Okay, thank you. I think we have tomorrow's session is getting warm in here, so I don't want to take it on longer. Because Ziller was just in time management, but he'll be back tomorrow participating in the discussion we have on this separate group. Let me mention one thing that is not, that I would like to express my concern, is that was triggered by your remark. You said, well, if you have a PhD, you have an established discipline, and not everywhere true, or in that case, PhD in public administration. But this goes even further. I mean, within this group, we talk a lot about quality and top ranking accreditation. But if you ask an American what makes the difference between a top program in public administration, it's not a matter of yes or no being accredited. The real truth is, well, it all depends. Do you have a PhD education connected to that accredited program? That's what I'm also a little bit concerned. So that is apart from not seeing this as an integrated, as an insulated activity, separate from, and then whether it should be done or not, standardized as a separate curriculum or a curricular activity. Personally, I think if I look at the developments and also the way things are going to be allocated, the PhD will actually become a very strategic resource in the whole debate, even on the quality of master institutions, basically the master and the perhaps even undergraduate level. So that is why there's another concern I would like to bring to the attention of the audience. We envisaged for some kind of a discussion now, but I think we've gone on already too long. There are opportunities to persuade us a little bit further. I think we staged the question. We even seem to come to some kind of specific concrete actions that could be undertaken. Indeed, there is an initiative taken by the doctoral network that could be linked to the type of proposal that you were just doing or inventory that you were asking for. So that could be tuned tomorrow. I don't know whether the tuning people will still be here tomorrow, but I would like to know whether it could be that their methodology could be of help and their experience could be of help, although we will separately talk about tuning in setting up such an exercise, and there's no way that I will be the one that's going to advocate that there should be one standardized PhD training for all of Europe, and that is something else, and that we should not overlook it as a crucial element also in the whole long life learning enterprise that also public administration seems to be becoming. It's warm here, so I'm going to take the liberty to not even open the floor, but simply go downstairs, have something to drink, and then take a short break, a coffee break, and then go to the various working group sessions that are being announced in the program. Thank you very much for your attention so far.